Hi, I'm Bob Ross, and for the next 13 weeks, I'll be your host as we experience the joy of painting. I think each of us, sometime during our life, has wanted to paint a picture.
Bob Ross is remembered as the calm painter with the soft voice, happy little trees, and peaceful landscapes that helped millions relax. But behind that gentle image was a far stranger story than most viewers ever realized. His life included strict military years, business deals, hidden conflicts, rescued animals, bizarre merchandise, and a legacy that exploded again decades after his death. In this video, we're uncovering rare facts about Bob Ross's famous hair, his massive painting empire, the surprising truth behind his success, and the unexpected ways the joy of painting returned to modern pop culture. 15. The budget perm that became a lifelong trademark. Bob Ross's famous curls looked so natural on television that most viewers assumed the hairstyle was carefully planned from the very beginning. It felt like part of the full Bob Ross package: the soft voice, the calm smile, the denim shirt, and that giant cloud of curly hair all blended together into one unforgettable image. But the truth behind the hairstyle was much simpler and far less glamorous. Bob did not get the perm because he thought it looked stylish, or because a television producer told him to create a memorable look. He actually chose it to save money. Before the joy of painting made him famous, Ross traveled constantly while teaching painting classes around the country. He lived on a tight budget and looked for small ways to cut costs wherever he could. Regular haircuts added up over time, so he decided a perm might be cheaper and easier to maintain. The plan worked financially, but the result surprised him. Instead of a normal hairstyle, Ross ended up with the tight curls that would later become one of the most recognizable looks in television history. Once the show exploded in popularity, the perm stopped being just hair. It became a brand. His silhouette appeared on books, paint sets, commercials, posters, and television ads. Viewers instantly recognized him before he even spoke. The curls became tied to comfort and relaxation itself. Ironically, Ross reportedly disliked the hairstyle for years. Still, he kept it because the audience connected that look with the calm painter they loved. What started as a simple money-saving decision quietly turned into a lifelong trademark. But the famous perm was only the beginning. Because in the next fact, we're uncovering the hidden pattern fans discovered inside Bob Ross's paintings that most viewers never noticed for years. 14. The hidden math behind happy little trees. For years, people joked that Bob Ross could not finish a painting without adding at least one happy little tree. The funny part is that the numbers actually support that idea. In 2014, a data analyst studied every painting featured on The Joy of Painting and discovered something surprising. Trees appeared in almost all of Bob Ross's television paintings. Mountains, lakes, clouds, and cabins came and went depending on the episode. But trees remained nearly constant. They were the true stars of his painted world. What made the discovery even stranger was how Ross almost never left a tree standing alone. If he painted one tree, another usually appeared nearby just moments later. That pattern matched one of his most famous beliefs. Ross often said that trees needed friends. It sounded like a simple joke while he painted, but over hundreds of episodes, it became a real habit. A single tree often turned into a full forest before the episode ended. Viewers probably never noticed the hidden repetition because his calm voice made everything feel natural and spontaneous. The deeper pattern inside his paintings revealed something else, too. Human beings were mostly absent from his world. People rarely appeared in his scenes. Instead, Ross focused on rivers, snowy mountains, quiet lakes, clouds, forests, and open skies. Even when cabins appeared, they usually looked tiny compared to the massive landscapes surrounding them. That choice helped create the peaceful feeling viewers connected with the show. His paintings looked untouched by noise, crowds, or stress. They felt like places far away from modern life. Behind every happy little tree was a quiet formula that kept pulling audiences into calm and silence again and again. 13. The Lone Cowboy and Bob Ross's Avoidance of Faces. Across hundreds of episodes of The Joy of Painting, Bob Ross created endless forests, snowy mountains, quiet lakes, and soft clouds drifting across the sky. Cabins appeared often, so did fences, rivers, waterfalls, and winding trails disappearing into the distance. But there was one thing viewers almost never saw in his paintings: people. Human figures were surprisingly rare in Bob Ross's world. In fact, during his time on the series, he only painted one clear human figure himself, and even that character remained mostly hidden. The moment appeared in an episode called Campfire. Near the glowing fire stood a lone cowboy leaning quietly against a tree. But the figure was not painted with detailed clothing, facial features, or careful realism. Instead, it appeared as a dark silhouette, almost blending into the shadows around the campsite. It felt mysterious and distant, more like a suggestion of a person than a true portrait. The cowboy became memorable precisely because human figures were so unusual in Bob's paintings. There was a practical reason behind that choice. Bob Ross painted quickly, often finishing entire landscapes in less than half an hour. Trees, mountains, and clouds allowed room for mistakes. A mountain could shift shape. A tree could grow larger. Water reflections could blur naturally. Faces were completely different. One small mistake with the eyes or mouth could ruin the entire image in seconds. 12. Shades of gray and a challenge to color itself. One of the most unusual episodes of The Joy of Painting began with a simple message from a viewer. The person explained that he was colorblind and believed painting was impossible for someone like him. Many television hosts might have offered a few encouraging words and moved on to the next letter. Bob Ross did something different. Instead of giving advice from a distance, he built an entire episode around that viewer's struggle. The result became one of the quietest but most meaningful moments in the history of the series. The episode was called Shades of Gray, and from the very beginning, viewers noticed something strange. The bright blues, greens, reds, and yellows usually spread across Bob's palette were gone. Instead, he painted using different shades of gray mixed from simple colors and white paint. Mountains slowly appeared through layers of light and shadow. Trees emerged from soft contrast rather than bold color. Reflections formed in dark water even without the rich tones fans expected from the show. The finished painting still looked peaceful and complete, despite the missing colors. What made the episode powerful was not just the technique. It was the message hiding underneath every brushstroke. Bob Ross wanted viewers to understand that limitations do not automatically end creativity. If one path becomes difficult, another path can still exist. Throughout the episode, he never treated the challenge as tragic or hopeless. He remained calm, patient, and encouraging, guiding viewers through the painting exactly as he always did. 11. Squirrels, owls, and a backyard sanctuary. Long before Bob Ross became television's calmest painter, he already had a soft spot for injured animals. Growing up in Florida, he often brought wounded creatures home and cared for them himself. Friends and family remembered him rescuing squirrels, birds, and even a baby alligator at one point. While most people knew him for happy little trees and snowy mountains, those close to him understood that his kindness extended far beyond the canvas. Helping animals became a quiet part of his everyday life, years before cameras entered the picture. That side of Bob occasionally appeared on The Joy of Painting in surprising ways. Viewers sometimes saw tiny animals sitting beside him while he painted. One of the most famous was Peapod, a small squirrel Bob rescued and raised until she became healthy enough to survive on her own. He gently held her during episodes, feeding her while calmly talking to the audience as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Another memorable guest was Hoot, a baby owl that instantly charmed viewers with its wide eyes and quiet presence. These animals were not television props. Bob genuinely cared for them behind the scenes. As the years passed, Bob and his wife reportedly turned part of their Florida property into a small sanctuary for injured wildlife. They cared for animals privately, without trying to turn it into publicity or attention. That detail explains why the world inside Bob Ross paintings always felt so peaceful. The calm forests, soft rivers, and untouched mountains reflected how he truly saw nature in real life. His kindness toward animals matched the gentle atmosphere of the show perfectly. The quiet world he painted was the same quiet world he tried to protect outside the studio too. 10. Cardboard boxes, pledge drives, and skyrocketing prices. For someone believed to have painted tens of thousands of canvases, original Bob Ross paintings are strangely difficult to find. Many fans assume his artwork must be everywhere because of how often he painted on television. But instead of being sold across galleries or museums, a large number of those paintings were quietly kept by Bob Ross Inc. over the years. Even more surprising, many were reportedly stored in simple cardboard boxes rather than expensive display rooms or protected museum vaults. The peaceful landscapes that comforted millions of viewers ended up stacked away like old office supplies. During the original run of The Joy of Painting, the paintings were not treated like priceless treasures. Bob Ross himself often cared more about teaching people how to paint than selling individual artworks. PBS stations also found another use for the paintings. During fundraising pledge drives, some stations offered Bob Ross originals as prizes for viewers who donated money to support public television. At the time, many people saw them as fun collector items connected to a relaxing TV show. Few imagined those same paintings would later become highly valuable. Years after Bob Ross passed away, interest in his work exploded again through streaming platforms, social media, and younger audiences discovering the show for the first time. Suddenly, the paintings that once quietly supported PBS drives became major collector pieces. Auction prices climbed higher and higher, with some works selling for shocking amounts of money. One painting from the very first episode even drew headlines for its enormous asking price. 9. The Mentor, the Method, and a Painful Rift. Before Bob Ross became the most recognizable painter on television, another artist had already introduced millions of viewers to fast landscape painting. His name was Bill Alexander, the energetic host of The Magic of Oil Painting. Alexander taught a technique called wet-on-wet painting, where artists applied fresh paint directly onto wet layers instead of waiting hours or days for the canvas to dry. The method allowed mountains, clouds, trees, and rivers to appear quickly, making it perfect for television. Bob Ross learned this approach from Alexander and openly admired him early in his career. At first, the relationship between the two artists looked respectful and friendly. Ross even credited Alexander publicly during his early years. But everything changed once The Joy of Painting exploded in popularity. Bob's softer voice, calmer personality, and relaxed style connected with audiences in a way few television hosts ever had. His fame grew rapidly, while Alexander slowly faded from the spotlight. Over time, resentment reportedly built between them. Alexander later expressed frustration in interviews, believing Ross had copied his style and surpassed him using the same method he had been taught. The conflict shocked many fans because Bob Ross seemed so peaceful on screen. Viewers saw a calm painter who avoided drama, smiled gently, and reassured everyone that mistakes were simply happy accidents. But behind the scenes, the situation revealed a more complicated reality. Success created tension even inside the quiet world of landscape painting. The strange part is that neither man truly invented the wet-on-wet technique itself. The method existed long before either of them appeared on television. Yet the emotional fallout between mentor and student still became deeply personal. Their rift served as a reminder that even the gentlest public figures can carry painful relationships hidden far away from the camera lights. 8. From Bust 'em Up Bobby to television's calmest voice. To millions of viewers, Bob Ross looked like the calmest man who had ever appeared on television. His voice barely rose above a gentle whisper. He spoke slowly, smiled constantly, and treated every painting mistake like a harmless accident. But long before the joy of painting turned him into a cultural icon, Bob Ross lived a completely different life. For nearly 20 years, he served in the United States Air Force, spending much of that time stationed in Alaska. The peaceful mountains and snowy forests he later painted so often were inspired directly by the landscapes he saw during those military years. Inside the Air Force, Ross was not known for soft words or relaxed conversations. He held positions that required discipline, authority, and control. By his own admission, he often yelled at people, enforced strict rules, and demanded high standards from younger recruits. Some even nicknamed him "Bust 'em Up Bobby" because of how tough he could be while giving orders. It was the exact opposite of the calm personality viewers later saw on PBS. The transformation almost feels impossible when comparing the two versions of his life side by side. Over time, the constant pressure and shouting began to wear on him. Ross later explained that he grew tired of being angry all the time. After leaving the military around the early 1980s, he made a personal promise that quietly changed his future forever. He decided he would never raise his voice again. But Bob Ross's calm voice was only part of the story. In the next fact, we're revealing the intense painting system behind the joy of painting. 7. The 28-minute miracle and the wet-on-wet machine. Every episode of The Joy of Painting looked almost impossible when you stopped to think about it. Bob Ross began with a blank canvas and somehow finished an entire landscape in less than half an hour. Mountains appeared in minutes. Rivers reflected trees almost instantly. Clouds drifted into the sky with only a few brush strokes. Viewers watched peaceful forests come to life in real time, while Bob calmly explained every step without ever sounding rushed. The process looked effortless, but behind the scenes, it depended on a very specific painting method. The secret was the wet-on-wet technique Bob learned earlier in his career. Instead of waiting for paint layers to dry, he spread wet paint directly onto a damp canvas and continued layering colors immediately. This allowed him to blend snow, water, trees, and skies together at incredible speed. Traditional oil painting often takes days because artists must wait between layers. Bob skipped that delay completely. The technique turned painting into a fast-moving performance, perfectly designed for television. What made the show even more impressive was the filming schedule itself. Bob did not record one episode each week, like many viewers assumed. Instead, entire seasons were often taped in only a few days. He would move from one painting to another almost non-stop, creating episode after episode under intense time pressure. Despite that exhausting schedule, he never looked stressed on camera. That calmness became part of the magic. While most people would panic under such pressure, Bob Ross stayed relaxed and steady. The show quietly proved that speed and peace could exist together, even inside a non-stop production machine. 6. The whisper that became a global sleep aid. Even during the original run of The Joy of Painting, many viewers noticed something unusual happening while they watched Bob Ross. People regularly admitted they fell asleep before the episode even ended. Some viewers even wrote letters apologizing, worried he might feel insulted that they drifted off during his lessons. But Bob reportedly never seemed offended by it. In fact, he appeared happy knowing the show helped people relax after stressful days. Over time, falling asleep to Bob Ross stopped being an accident and slowly became part of the experience itself. The effect came from more than just the paintings. His soft voice moved slowly and evenly without sudden noise or sharp reactions. The sound of brushes tapping against the canvas added another layer of calm. Even the scraping noise from his palette knife became strangely comforting to audiences. Combined with peaceful landscapes and quiet pacing, the entire show created an atmosphere that felt almost hypnotic. Long before terms like ASMR became popular online, Bob Ross had already created something very similar without even trying. Years later, people who had never touched a paintbrush still returned to the show for comfort. Some played episodes in the background while studying, relaxing, or trying to sleep. Others watched simply to hear his reassuring voice during difficult moments. His calming style became powerful far beyond art instruction itself. That unexpected legacy eventually spread into streaming platforms, meditation apps, and internet marathons watched by millions. Bob Ross may have started as a painting teacher, but his quiet delivery transformed him into something much larger. For countless viewers around the world, he became a source of peace in a loud and stressful world that rarely slows down anymore. 5. A global afterlife, a Twitch revival, and an unfinished season complete. When Bob Ross passed away in 1995, many people assumed the joy of painting would slowly disappear with time. The show belonged to a quieter television era long before streaming platforms and non-stop internet culture took over. But instead of fading away, Bob Ross somehow grew even bigger after his death. Episodes continued airing around the world, reaching viewers in countries far beyond American public television. Audiences in places like Japan, Germany, Mexico, and South Korea connected with the same calm energy that made him famous in the first place. Even when his voice was dubbed into other languages, the peaceful feeling of the show remained untouched. Then came one of the strangest revivals in television history. In 2015, the streaming platform Twitch decided to celebrate what would have been Bob Ross's birthday by airing every episode of The Joy of Painting non-stop for several days. Millions of younger viewers suddenly discovered him on a website, mostly known for fast-paced gaming streams and loud online personalities. The contrast made the event even more fascinating. While the internet usually moved at high speed, Bob Ross calmly painted mountains and trees for hours, while viewers filled the live chat with messages about happy little trees and peaceful memories. The revival did not stop there. Years later, unfinished Bob Ross materials inspired a brand new continuation connected to the series. Nicholas Hankins, a certified Bob Ross instructor, helped bring those unfinished ideas back to life using the same painting techniques and calm structure fans remembered. Nearly 3 decades after Bob's death, the joy of painting still refuses to disappear. Instead, it keeps finding new audiences, proving that calmness can survive even in the middle of the modern internet age. 4. 30,000 canvases and a life, measured in paint. Bob Ross once estimated that he created around 30,000 paintings during his lifetime. The number sounds almost unbelievable at first. It means he spent decades painting almost non-stop, producing landscapes at a pace few artists could maintain. Mountains, forests, rivers, lakes, cabins, and snowy skies flowed from his brushes year after year until painting became as natural to him as breathing. While viewers saw only one finished canvas each episode, the reality behind the scenes was far more demanding than most people realized. For nearly every painting featured on The Joy of Painting, Bob often created multiple versions of the exact same scene. Before filming, he painted a practice version so he could plan the composition and avoid problems during recording. Then came the actual television version painted live in front of the cameras. After filming ended, he frequently painted the scene again for books and instructional materials, allowing photographers to capture each step clearly for students. One television landscape could quietly turn into 3 separate paintings before the process was truly finished. That routine repeated over and over across hundreds of episodes. The calm man viewers watched on PBS was actually operating inside an intense creative machine built on discipline, repetition, and relentless work. He taped episodes quickly, traveled for classes, created products, and continued painting far beyond the television studio itself. What makes Bob Ross fascinating is the contrast between his personality and his workload. He looked relaxed at all times, yet his output matched the pace of someone constantly pushing forward. Behind every soft-spoken sentence and every happy little tree stood a man whose entire life was measured not in years, but in canvases covered with paint. 3. The show that paid nothing and sold everything. One of the strangest facts about The Joy of Painting is that Bob Ross reportedly did not receive a direct salary from PBS for making the series. For a show that became one of the most recognizable programs in television history, that sounds almost impossible. Week after week, viewers watched him calmly create landscapes that turned him into a household name. Yet the network itself was not paying him like a traditional television star. On paper, it looked like a terrible business deal. But Bob Ross understood something far more valuable than a simple paycheck: exposure. The show quietly became one giant advertisement without ever feeling like one. While Bob painted mountains and forests, viewers also watched him use specific brushes, paints, knives, and techniques connected to his growing brand. Fans who wanted to paint like Bob naturally searched for his books, instructional tapes, classes, and official supplies. The more trust viewers placed in him, the stronger the business became behind the scenes. His television presence opened the door to a massive market built around painting education. Soon, the Bob Ross name expanded far beyond the PBS studio. Certified classes taught students how to recreate his methods. Branded paint sets and art tools appeared in stores. Instructional materials spread across the country. The calm painter with the soft voice slowly built an empire connected to creativity and relaxation. What made the strategy work was Bob himself. He never sounded like a salesman. He felt trustworthy, patient, and comforting. Audiences believed him because he never appeared pushy or aggressive. That gentle image became the foundation of a business machine powerful enough to survive decades after his death. Bob Ross was not standing in front of viewers shouting about products or pushing them to buy anything. Instead, he made people feel like they could pick up a brush and try. That feeling was the real selling point. Every happy little tree made painting seem less intimidating, and every finished landscape made the tools look simple, useful, and worth having. 2. When Deadpool picked up the fan brush. More than 20 years after the joy of painting ended, Bob Ross suddenly appeared in one of the last places anyone expected: a Deadpool movie promotion. In 2017, the first teaser for Deadpool 2 surprised viewers by opening not with explosions or action scenes, but with a peaceful painting setup called Wet on Wet. For a few strange moments, it genuinely looked like an old Bob Ross episode had somehow returned to television. Then audiences realized the painter standing in front of the canvas was actually Ryan Reynolds dressed as Deadpool. The parody copied nearly every detail of Bob Ross's famous appearance. Reynolds wore the curly wig, the light blue shirt, and the paint-covered outfit viewers instantly recognized. He mimicked Bob's calm speaking style, slow pacing, and soft tone almost perfectly, while standing beside an easel and painting a peaceful landscape. The teaser even recreated the gentle rhythm of the joy of painting, before suddenly switching back into the violent and chaotic humor Deadpool was known for. The contrast made the entire joke even funnier. What mattered most was how instantly audiences understood the reference. The parody worked because Bob Ross had become far more than a public television host. His image, voice, and painting style were now deeply connected to pop culture itself. Younger viewers who had never even watched full episodes still recognized the curls, the soft voice, and the idea of happy little trees. The teaser quickly spread online and attracted millions of views, proving Bob Ross still had enormous cultural power decades after his death. In a world filled with loud internet personalities and fast entertainment, his calm image remained unforgettable. Even modern superhero movies realized there was something strangely timeless about the peaceful painter from PBS. And just when it seemed Bob Ross had reached every corner of pop culture, this last fact reveals the strangest place his face ever appeared. 1. Toast, novelties, and the face that launched 1,000 products. Bob Ross once stood quietly in front of a canvas teaching people how to paint trees and mountains. Decades later, his face somehow ended up on products nobody could have predicted during the original PBS years. What started as a simple painting show slowly transformed into one of the strangest merchandising stories in television history. Bob Ross became the face of countless licensed products, turning his calm image into a full pop culture brand. His likeness appeared on mugs, socks, calendars, toys, action figures, board games, and even household appliances. One of the most unusual creations was the officially licensed Bob Ross toaster. At first glance, it looked like a normal kitchen appliance. But once the toast popped out, viewers discovered something bizarre burned directly into the bread. Bob Ross's face, his famous hair, beard, and outline, appeared toasted onto each slice like a breakfast portrait. The product sounded ridiculous, yet fans loved it because it perfectly captured how recognizable his image had become. A man once known only for public television art lessons could now appear on someone's breakfast table every morning. The explosion of Bob Ross merchandise revealed something bigger about his legacy. His image had escaped the limits of painting and entered everyday life itself. People who never painted a single landscape still recognized the curls, the beard, and the calm smile immediately. His face became connected with comfort, humor, relaxation, and nostalgia all at once. That strange journey says a lot about how deeply Bob Ross entered popular culture. Few PBS hosts become global icons. Even fewer end up toasted onto bread decades after their show first aired. Somehow, Bob Ross became both a peaceful artist and an unforgettable brand at the exact same time. Bob Ross was never just the quiet painter people remembered from PBS. From hidden conflicts to viral internet revivals, his story turned out far stranger than most viewers ever realized. Which fact surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch the next video shown on the screen for more forgotten stories behind classic television.